Deterrence AI, the leading blog in proactive security.
All right, so you might have heard this word floating around, LoRa. Yeah, it seems like it's popping up everywhere these days. They're saying it's a game changer, like it's going to change the world, and especially for security, But what's the real story? Like, what is it really all about? So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to decode this tech, see how it really works.
Yeah.
And find out, does it live up to the hype? Is it all it's cracked up to be?
I think it's safe to say it's definitely more than just a buzzword. I mean, LoRa's already having a pretty big impact in a bunch of different fields.
Yeah, for sure. And, we've got some fascinating sources to help guide us here today. First up is Mastering LoRa Technology. And they say this is going to break down how this thing works, even if you've never even heard of it before. So we're going to put that promise to the test.
Yeah, this source is actually known for explaining the really complex stuff about LoRa in a way that, pretty much anyone can understand.
Okay, cool. So let's start with the fundamentals then. What exactly is LoRa, and how's it different from all the other wireless stuff we use every day?
So what sets LoRa apart is that it can send data over really long distances. We're talking miles here, but it uses hardly any power. So think about a single sensor running on a tiny little battery, and it can keep a whole farm secure for years.
Wow, wait, years on a single battery? That's pretty wild. But my brain's going back to the old dial-up internet days. If data's going that far, it must be super slow, right?
Yeah, a lot of people think that, but with LoRa, it's not about speed. It's more about efficiency for specific tasks. So LoRa uses this thing called chirp spread spectrum technology. It sounds complicated, but it basically lets it send little bits of data,
Sure.
readings from sensors or alerts or location updates, things like that. It can send them over these huge distances, but without using a ton of energy.
So it's not for streaming movies. It's more for making sure that farmer knows if there's a gate open or if a piece of equipment breaks down miles away. Okay, I got it. But we can't really talk about LoRa and security without talking about, security. How does it keep all that data safe from hackers and stuff?
That's a super important point, and LoRa's got that covered. So it uses this protocol called LoRaWAN, and LoRaWAN has a bunch of security measures built right in. We're talking data encryption, secure authentication, the whole 9 yards, everything you need to make sure that the information that's being sent stays private.
Oh, okay. That's good to hear, especially compared to some of the other wireless options out there. But how does LoRa's security stack up against the competition? Is it really top notch?
Yeah, generally speaking, LoRaWAN's security features are considered really strong, especially for what it's designed for. It's meant to be lightweight and efficient, but it still gives you a high level of protection for your data while it's being sent.
Interesting. So it's not just about keeping data safe.
Yeah.
It's about doing it in a way that's, practical and efficient for all these long-range, low-power situations.
Right.
Makes sense. Okay, so if LoRa is all about secure, long-range communication, what are people actually using it for? What are the real-world applications? Well, our next source, Diverse Applications of LoRa-Based Security Systems, seems to have some answers for us.
Yeah, this source is a goldmine. It's packed with real-world examples of how people are using LoRa to solve all kinds of problems in all sorts of industries. We're talking smart homes, agriculture, industrial settings, even healthcare.
Oh, wow. Okay, let's start with something we can all relate to, smart homes.
Yeah.
We've all heard of Wi-Fi security cameras and smart locks, but is LoRa taking home security to a whole new level?
Definitely. So LoRa lets you have a truly interconnected smart home. It goes way beyond just basic security. Think about sensors that can detect leaks before they cause damage, or send you an alert if the temperature in your house gets too dangerous for your pets, or even monitor the air quality. And it can all be done on a single network that uses very little power.
That's crazy. It's so much more advanced than what most of us are used to. I mean, I'm especially interested in that leak detection thing that would save so many headaches and insurance claims. But okay, so what about outside the home? Our source mentioned agriculture. What kind of impact is LoRa having on farms and stuff?
Well, think about the challenges farmers face. I mean, they have these huge properties, often in remote locations, and they have to constantly be monitoring everything, right? LoRa can totally change the game for them. So imagine getting an instant notification if a fence breaks or your livestock wander off, or if a piece of equipment malfunctions, and you get all this without having to actually go out and physically check on everything.
That sounds amazing. Talk about peace of mind for farmers. No more driving for miles just to see if everything's okay.
Yeah.
It's like having a virtual farmhand keeping an eye on things. But I bet those benefits apply to industrial settings too, right?
Oh, absolutely. LoRa is perfect for keeping these big industrial environments safe and running smoothly, so you can have real-time data on how your equipment's performing, you can get safety alerts, and you can even track valuable assets as they're being moved around.
It's like having an invisible network,
Yeah.
constantly monitoring everything. Pretty impressive. And our source mentioned some pretty cool uses for LoRa in healthcare too. What's going on there?
Healthcare is a perfect example of how LoRa's combination of long range, low power, and security really shines. So it can be used to track patients in hospitals, make sure they're safe, send like time-sensitive alerts to medical staff, or even monitor the temperature of medicine remotely. It can even help improve patient care and outcomes by letting doctors monitor chronic conditions remotely.
Wow, LoRa is literally saving lives. That's amazing so far. It sounds like this technology can do it all. But let's be real. Every technology has its limitations, right?
Yeah.
How does LoRa stack up against other wireless options? Luckily, we have our final source for today, wireless security technology comparison, to help us sort through all that.
Yeah, the source is great because it acknowledges that there's no one best technology. It all depends on what you need it for, the right tool for the job.
So it's a wireless showdown.
Mm.
What are we talking about here? Who are the main players and how does LoRa measure up?
Okay, so the main contenders are Wi-Fi cellular, and then these other LPWAN technologies, and they all have their own strengths and weaknesses. So first, Wi-Fi great for speed and convenience, but the range is limited, and it can use a lot of power.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wi-Fi is great for like streaming Netflix at home, but not so much for a sensor that's monitoring a water pump in the middle of nowhere.
All right.
Okay, so what about cellular? It seems like it's everywhere these days.
Yeah, cellular gives you really reliable coverage over long distances, but it has two big downsides: expensive data plans, and it drains your battery. So it's perfect for smartphones that are always moving and need a lot of bandwidth. But for things like sensors that just sit there and only send small bits of data every now and then, it's probably not the best option in terms of cost or energy efficiency.
So cellular is great for staying connected on the go, but maybe not the best choice for like a sensor that's checking the soil conditions in a field.
Okay.
Okay, what about these other LPWAN technologies you mentioned? How do they compare to LoRa?
So LPWAN stands for Low Power Wide Area Network. It's like a whole category of technologies for these types of applications. And while there are some other strong contenders out there, LoRa usually comes out on top, especially when you consider things like cost range and how well established the LoRaWAN ecosystem is. It has a lot of support.
So LoRa has like a good network of support, which makes it more accessible and appealing to a lot of users.
Yeah.
But okay, before we crown LoRa the ultimate champion, let's step back for a second. We've thrown a lot of information at you, the listener.
Yeah.
So how do you actually figure out which wireless technology is the right one for your specific needs?
Well, that takes some careful thinking. There's no one-size-fits-all answer. So you have to really think about what's most important to you. Do you need to transfer data quickly, or is low power consumption more important? How far apart do your devices need to communicate? What's your budget? Once you've thought about all those things, you can narrow down your options and make a smart decision.
It's like choosing the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
Right, you wouldn't use a screwdriver to hammer in a nail, but figuring out the right tool in the world of wireless technology can be a little tricky.
It definitely can be. But luckily, there are a ton of resources out there to help you make the right call.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've laid a good foundation here. We've explored the basics of LoRa technology, how it works, and how it compares to some of the other options out there. But now let's move on to the really fun stuff. Seeing it in action, we'll dive into some real-world examples and see how LoRa is already making a difference in different industries.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into that. There's some really cool applications out there that really show you what this technology can do. All right, so let's jump into some of those real-world applications we were talking about before the break. There are so many cool ways LoRa is being used. It's kind of hard to know where to start.
Yeah, I know, right? The possibilities seem endless. But before the break, we were talking about how LoRa's long range and low power consumption and all those strong security features make it perfect for so many different uses. But I really want to hear about like specific examples of LoRa in action.
Okay, so how about we start with smart cities? That's one of the areas where LoRa is having a huge impact. So imagine a city where traffic flows smoothly, parking is super easy, and utilities are managed incredibly efficiently, all thanks to a network of LoRa sensors.
It sounds like a utopia. I'm picturing self-driving cars zipping around effortlessly finding parking spots. Okay, maybe that's a little too futuristic, but you're painting a pretty awesome picture. So what kind of problems is LoRa solving in these smart cities? What's it actually doing?
We're talking about everything from monitoring air quality and noise pollution to optimizing waste management, and even detecting leaks in those underground pipes before they turn into major disasters, like, for example, Barcelona. They implemented a LoRa-based smart parking system, and it actually reduced traffic congestion by 15% and increased parking revenue by 20%. Pretty impressive, right?
Wow, that's a huge improvement. Less traffic, more efficient use of resources, and happier citizens who wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
But with all this talk about efficiency, I'm curious about the environmental impact.
Yeah.
We're all trying to be more eco-friendly these days. So is LoRa good for the planet or bad for the planet?
That's a great question, and it's something that the people who developed LoRa have thought a lot about. Remember how we talked about its low power consumption? That's not just good for battery life. It also means it uses less energy overall, which helps reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and contributes to a more sustainable future.
So LoRa's helping to create smarter and greener cities. That's pretty cool. But let's get back to the security side of things for a minute. I mean, that's a big focus of our deep dive today. So how is LoRa actually being used to make all these different applications we're talking about more secure?
Yeah, so we talked about these security features built into LoRaWAN, but it's worth repeating just how strong they are. We're talking end-to-end encryption, secure authentication, tamper-proof devices. All these things work together to protect your data at every stage.
Okay, good to know. But as we all know, security isn't just about technology. It's also about people and how organizations do things.
Yeah.
So how does LoRa fit into that bigger picture?
You're right. LoRa isn't like a magic solution. It's a powerful tool, but it has to be used in a smart and strategic way. It works best when it's part of a larger security plan that includes things like clear security policies, proper training for employees, and regular checks to make sure the system is still secure.
So it's about having like a holistic approach to security with LoRa as an important piece of the puzzle. Makes sense. But it's also important to remember that no technology is perfect, right? As more and more people start using LoRa, are there any potential downsides or challenges we need to be aware of?
Of course, while LoRa has a lot of potential, it's important to be realistic about the challenges. One challenge is interoperability. So right now, there are multiple LoRaWAN networks operating in different parts of the world, and they don't always talk to each other very well. This can lead to fragmentation and make it harder to develop LoRa applications that work globally.
So it's like having different languages being spoken in different parts of the LoRa world. That does sound like a pretty big obstacle. Are there any other challenges we should know about?
Another thing to consider is scalability. As more and more devices come online, we need to make sure that the LoRaWAN infrastructure can handle all that extra traffic without slowing down or becoming less secure. It's like expanding a highway to accommodate more cars. You have to do it carefully to avoid creating traffic jams or accidents.
That's a great analogy. Okay, so scalability and interoperability. Those are definitely some things to keep in mind. But now I want to talk about some of the more mind-blowing applications of LoRa. The stuff that makes you say, wait, they can do that with LoRa?
Oh, there are tons of those. One of my favorites is wildlife tracking. So researchers are using LoRa-enabled collars to track the movements of endangered species. It's amazing they're getting all this valuable information about their behavior, and it's helping to protect them from poachers.
That's incredible. It's like having a secret window into the lives of these amazing animals, all thanks to LoRa. What other cool applications are out there?
Another one that's really interesting is precision agriculture. So farmers are using LoRa sensors to monitor things like soil conditions, irrigation levels, and even the health of individual plants. It's allowing them to optimize their crop yields, conserve resources, and reduce the environmental impact of farming.
It's like giving farmers superpowers. They can see exactly what their crops need and react in real time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to think LoRa really is like the Swiss Army knife of wireless technology.
I agree. It's so versatile, and it has the potential to solve so many problems. It's really exciting to think about where this technology will go next.
Speaking of the future, we've explored the current state of LoRa and all its different applications.
Yeah.
But what does the future hold for this game-changing technology? How might it evolve and shape the world in the years to come?
That's the exciting part. We're still in the early days of the LoRa revolution, and the possibilities are pretty much limitless. I think we'll see even wider adoption across industries as the technology matures.
So we're back for the last part of our LoRa deep dive, and I gotta say it's been pretty amazing going from not really knowing much about this stuff to seeing all these incredible things it can do.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey for sure. We've covered so much from the nuts and bolts of how LoRa works to its impact on everything from smart cities to saving endangered animals.
Exactly. And we talked about the challenges too, the potential downsides and of course all those amazing possibilities that LoRa offers. But now I'm thinking about the future. You said earlier that we're still in the early stages of this LoRa revolution. So what does that future look like to you? What do you see happening?
Well, I think we'll see a lot more people and businesses using LoRa across all kinds of industries as the technology gets better and cheaper. As the LoRaWAN infrastructure grows, it's going to open up so many doors for, everyone to take advantage of what it can do.
So LoRa's going mainstream. That's pretty exciting. But what about the technology itself? Are there any, like, cool new developments coming up that could make LoRa even more powerful?
Oh, yeah, definitely. We're already seeing some progress in things like geolocation, which is going to make it even easier to track assets and monitor remote locations with like pinpoint accuracy. And then there are researchers working on ways to increase data rates and make it even more energy efficient. So LoRa is only going to get better and more versatile.
Wow. It's like they're constantly finding ways to improve it, but as it gets more powerful and more widely used, we can't forget about those ethical considerations we talked about earlier, right?
You're absolutely right. As with any technology that has this much potential, there's always the risk that it could be used for the wrong reasons. So we really need to have those open and honest conversations about data privacy and security and, making sure that LoRa is developed and used responsibly.
It's a good reminder that technology is only as good as the people who are using it. We need to make sure that LoRa is a force for good, not something that harms people or takes advantage of them. But let's shift gears for a second and bring this back to you, the listener. We've covered a lot of ground today, but ultimately you're the one who's going to take this information and do something with it. So what can you do to be a part of this whole LoRa revolution?
First of all, stay curious. Keep learning about LoRa and all the cool things it can do. There are tons of resources online, communities and even workshops where you can dive in and learn from other people who are excited about this technology.
So embrace your inner techie and keep that LoRa learning going. What else would you suggest for our listeners?
Well, if you're like a business owner or someone who makes decisions, think about how LoRa could solve problems or create new opportunities for your company. Maybe it could help you run things more efficiently or improve security or even develop some brand new products or services. The key is to be creative and explore all the possibilities.
Yeah, don't just watch the revolution happen. Join in. I love that advice. And speaking of possibilities, I want to leave our listeners with one last question to think about. If LoRa can revolutionize security and, transform all these different industries in all the ways we've discussed, what other problems could it solve? Where could this technology go next? What do you think?
That's the beauty of it. We're really just at the beginning of what LoRa can do. The future is wide open, and it's so exciting to think about all the amazing and impactful things that people will come up with.
What a great way to wrap up our LoRa deep dive. We started out as LoRa newbies, and now hopefully we're all LoRa enthusiasts. So I encourage you to keep learning more about this incredible technology. Remember, this is just the start. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with LoRa.
And until next time, happy exploring, everyone.